I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. You know, every time you spend your fiat money, you increase the debt in the globe, which decreases your purchasing power. That's why you're going broke. That's the way they love it out there. But there's a new dimension now, a new way for you to go broke. It's called Zynga dollars. We're going to find out all about it. But first, let's bring in the lovely, the talented Stacy Herbert.
Maxwell, all of my headlines today have to do with this sort of neo-feudal gulag casino state. The first headline reads, "The European gold confiscation scheme unfolds. European Parliament approves use of gold as collateral." According to their press release, yesterday's unanimous agreement by the European Parliament's Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, ECON, they go by, to allow central counterparties to accept gold as collateral under the European Market Infrastructure Regulation, EMIR, another word for king, is further recognition of gold's growing relevance as a high-quality liquid asset.
Yeah, of course. You know, the history of this is they outlawed gold for a while. They tried to bring in fiat money, which was as good as gold. And now that they've discovered that the fiat money is bogus, they've got two paths of diverging. Number one, they are remonetizing gold. They're trying to bring it back into the system, but they're using all the fiat money that they created willy-nilly to use that to acquire the gold of various states, like Greece, for example, which has 111 tons of gold. They've been told now that this gold can be used to settle the debts that they themselves did not incur. These are debts that were foisted upon them from outsiders. And now that they can't pay the debts that they had nothing to do in creating, the outsiders are saying, well, we'll take the gold. Gee, that's a really great deal.
Well, exactly. I mean, even in their quote, Max, from their press release, it's a recognition of gold's growing relevance as a high-quality liquid asset. This is a currency that has been around for 5,000 years and has been accepted for 5,000 years. You're saying, oh, suddenly it's growing in relevance. But it looks like we've been playing basically Farmville for the last 30, 40 years since the beginning of a total global fiat currency world. And we've all been incurring this debt, like thinking we're getting away something for nothing, we're getting free lunches. And now they're like, actually, we're going to take this gold.
Well, another thing that's growing, aside from the relevance, is the price. And as the price goes higher, it's becoming more relevant. I wonder how that happened.
And so just to note that this is, of course, to get the gold of Greece, Spain, and Italy and Portugal. Greece has 111 tons, Portugal has 382 tons, Spain has 281 tons, and Italy has 2,451 tons.
Ooh, doggy.
So speaking of gold, that's my next headline. Gold farming in a Chinese forced labor camp. It's not the physical gold, you might think. Gold farming is actually, they force these Chinese prisoners to play multiplayer games, amassing credits and virtual objects. Then the prison guards are forcing the Chinese slave labor to hand them these virtual credits that they've gained in various games around the world, whether it's World of Warcraft or Farmville, and hand them to the prison guards who then sell them for real cash.
Right. This is the beautiful thing about these Zynga dollars, Farmville dollars. As I explained at the top of the show, when you spend your fiat money, the levels of debt in the world grow, which has the effect of reducing your purchasing power. It's called inflation. You're getting poorer every day because you keep spending this fiat money that's backed by 99% debt. Now, a Zynga dollar or a Farmville dollar is backed by 100% of nothing. And the more that time you spend on Farmville or Zynga, the more the overall money that's in circulation is debased by a quantum leap more in terms of debasement, and you end up in prison. So these Chinese prisoners who are forced to play Zynga Farmville games to amass credits that are being passed to their prison masters, people in the U.S., at home, they've effectively checked themselves in to their own home prison, where they're playing on Zynga dollars and Farmville, creating massive amounts of this new fiat virtual currency which is debasing the purchasing power, and it's the same thing as checking into prison. They're taking their hard-earned money that they earn doing menial jobs, it's 99% debt, and they're exchanging it for virtual money that's 100% debt.
Well, to go along with this headline, Max, about the gold farming, headline reads, Farmville herd lined up for market as Zynga plans summer flotation. So it's millions of users stump up real money, i.e. $1.8 billion worth last year, to pay for virtual cows as they play online phenomenon Farmville.
The plows and the cows and the artifacts of Farmville are virtual representations tied to the cost of electrons, of which there is no cost. And it's infinitely reproducible. So you're taking, again, your labor that you're getting 99% debt-backed fiat money for, and you're swapping it for a virtual currency that's debasing the currency again, driving all of your net worth down into the prison level where you are to live, thanks to Zynga dollars and Farmville, the new prison motif, taking the Walt Disney dream of a perpetual amusement prison to its termination point of ultimate imprisonment.
Well, so we're on the glue...
We're on the glue factory. A lot of the horses in these virtual farms are made into virtual glue, and then they stick them together and they create virtual glue sniffers, and they get high on virtual glue sniffing made from virtual horses. Talk about a virtual nightmare. That's one of the worst I've heard in the last 50 seconds.
Well, we're on the global casino gulag model, and this takes me to the next headline. You actually wrote it, but you have such a good picture here on this headline, I had to use it. Global flash crash equals splash crash. So remember the flash crash of May 6th, 2010?
First domestic terrorist attack, financial terrorism, yes.
Yes. When that was the stock markets collapsed sharply 1,000 points, the Dow, and then back up. Well, they're now warning about a catastrophic splash crash, a dislocation by high-speed trading computers that could simultaneously splash across many more asset classes and markets. So it wouldn't just be the Dow, it would be the FTSE and the gold market and the oil market all splashing at the same time.
Right, you have all these markets around the world, big markets, oil, gold, currency markets, all going through enormous volatility, computer-driven, as a way to, again, keep the population completely outside of having any chance of amassing any sizable net worth that would give them any political power to stop the transformation of their economy and their political systems into the casino gulag model that we now see Zynga and these other IPO flotated companies, thanks to Goldman Sachs, the ultimate arbiter and purveyor of fiat currency, virtual currency, nonsensical, non-economical nonsense.
Well, the machines, these high-frequency trading machines, typically hold the stocks for 2 to 7 seconds, realize a portion of a penny profit, and repeat the process over and over. The pennies accumulate into astronomically large heaps. Estimates of the unregulated, secretive industry's profits for 2009 ranged from $2 billion to $5.6 billion in profits.
7 seconds. Well, it's longer than it takes Dominic Strauss-Kahn to rape some maid.
That's obvious joke there coming from Max Keiser, but we're talking about high-frequency trading. I want to say that these are, as the article points out, these are not something that a mere mortal can scoop, those millisecond fractional arbitrages. So what sort of market is this where it's just machines trading against each other?
The machines are in charge, as we've been warning about for quite some time. And the people at these banks, they don't actually work for a living. They just come into the office in the morning. They see how much money the machines have raked out of the global economy. Remember Goldman Sachs and their high-frequency trading scandal from last year. It was estimated that they steal $100 million every single day through high-frequency trading. It's an old scam on Wall Street. You put on 1,000 trades. At the end of the day, the ones that are winners, you take. The ones that are losers, you give to the pension accounts out there that are now suffering, and then people end up with nothing, and they all end up, of course, face down in the mud playing casino gulag games for Farmville.
So part of the splash they envision is that they all have their own unique algorithm, and some of them are tied into things like Twitter. So they'll be looking at like any breaking news, in a fraction of a second, they try to get in front of it. So, and you also know that Twitter is totally manipulated as well. The trending topics, a lot of people put out fake celebrity death notices. So the same thing, a splash crash could be caused technically by somebody putting out a fake tweet.
Well, not only do the machines read the news and then react to the news, but the machines can also write the news. Exactly. In ways that they believe will affect prices to create arbitrage opportunities and manipulated profits on any given moment.
Well, as the machines are trading against each other, one of the machines could technically write a tweet, a hoax tweet, in order to manipulate one of the other machines. And we see that similar in the next headline. CFTC charges oil traders for puking on market. So James Dyer and Nicholas Wildgoose, former BP traders who were working for oil trading house Arcadia Parnon, were charged for a scheme to hoard oil, make a, quote, load of money, and then dump it in an inevitable puking, according to emails acquired by the CFTC.
Right. Well, the inevitable puking is known beforehand because the system is so highly leveraged. We're talking leverage 10,000 to 1, 20,000 to 1. And they know that at certain breakpoints that the system will automatically puke out positions because to allow it to continue would mean instant insolvency for half the global economy. It's kind of like watching those Japanese sex robots have an orgy and then all of a sudden they run out of electricity.
I've never seen that, but this scheme happened between January and April 2008. The CFTC complaint alleges that by mid-January 2008, the traders had accumulated 4.6 million barrels of physical oil, or 2/3 of oil available for delivery, against the February WTI futures contract. And by March, they had 84% of all oil available for delivery. And then they dumped it on the market, and then they left the market. But the profits they made were $50 million. So this just shows you, this is another theme we've pointed out, is that these guys take down a $15 trillion economy for $50 billion in Christmas bonuses. So it's the opposite of how we have to incur more and more debt in order to have $1 of GDP growth. The same for the way down. For these guys to take profit from destroying the economy, they need to make the collapse bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, basically they've created a financial Cuisinart. They take $15 trillion economy, they dump it in the Cuisinart, and then they hit chop. And what's left there they sell for, what their Christmas bonus to scavengers in other countries. Stacy Herbert, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
That's going to do it, but don't go away because there's much more coming your way, so stay right there.
Did I kill an innocent kid? Or was it a cone? It's a question that's never answered. Glory, glory. Vietnam is something that's constant with me. I think of it every day. I still have the flashbacks from it, the memories. Shining down.
I sold my soul a long time ago. I'm just here trying to recover.
I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I had been wounded. I was ashamed that I hadn't been a hero.
I'm alive. I got my arm, I got my legs, I'm alive. But in the mind.
When I went to Vietnam, I was a hardcore troop. And I believed what I was doing was the right thing. And I was a good soldier. But now I'm a soldier on the other side, and I think I'm just as good.
They live not only next to the border of the Gaza Strip and Egypt, but also on the border of peace and war. They're responsible not only for themselves, but also for their loved ones. And they are ready to take any risk. Abu Jamil Street on RT.
Hi, welcome back to the Keiser Report. Time now to turn to economist John Matonis. He's a former CEO of Hushmail. He's a former chief forex trader at Visa. He's also a blogger at Monetary Future. He's been writing about Bitcoin lately. So we're going to talk to him about Bitcoin. John Matonis, welcome to the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max. Good to be here.
All right, so what is Bitcoin?
Well, to start off, on initially how I got interested in this, I'd like to just take a step back and say that as a society, I think that I believe that we can do better than centralized monetary planning and debasing the currency, as the central banksters have been doing.
Okay, that's a recurring theme on this show.
Exactly.
This is why we really want to dig into this Bitcoin story. It's getting a lot of press lately, so take us through. What's going on here?
Okay, at the very basic level, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer distributed electronic currency.
When you say P2P or peer-to-peer, I think of music file swapping. And there's computers, and they have music on the computers. And the computers are able to swap files of music, P2P, in this way, and made famous from Napster. You know, Napster was became very famous.
And BitTorrents.
And BitTorrents.
BitTorrents for movies.
Okay, so now this is being applied to currencies, right?
Now it's being applied to currencies. So you can think of it as BitTorrents for movies applied to currencies. You can also think of it as PGP encrypted email. PGP for money is another way to think of it. People know about pretty good privacy for email.
Right, PGP is an encryption technology that's readily available.
Readily available now. It wasn't at first, but now you can have end-to-end secure email.
All right, so take us through a transaction. So a normal transaction using Bitcoin on the web. So how would I, as a consumer, how do I interact with it?
Well, as a consumer, you would initially download the Bitcoin client, and you would do that from bitcoin.org. It's open source software, and the currency is not centrally managed. It's not centrally issued, and the transactions aren't centrally verified. All of those tasks are performed by the collective nodes of the network. So it's almost like a headless mob where there is no central direction. And that's beneficial. That's what you want. The main thing.
Okay, so I download the client on the bitcoin.org, which now I am part of the network.
So now you've downloaded the client. You have the option either to generate coins or to perform transactions, receive and send.
So I can either generate coins or I can be involved in a transaction using these coins, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's put aside generating the coin for a second, because there is some jargon there we're going to revisit. But so let's just talk about a transaction, though. The transaction side, how does that work?
The way the transaction works is you would either have to receive or send coins. So let's assume that you already have some coins,
okay,
and that you either purchased them or they were sent to you. What you've done when you've downloaded the client is you've generated your own public-private key pair. So you're able to sign your coins, and then you have a public key, like you would for PGP, that you put out for receiving your coins.
Okay, so I purchase these Bitcoins. So if I can purchase them with my dollars, my U.S. dollars.
Correct.
So, and presumably there's some kind of exchange rate.
The exchange rate currently is around $6 or $7 US for one Bitcoin.
And that's floating, I would imagine.
It's 24 hours a day. It's floating rate.
Right. So it's a floating rate depending on variable
supply and demand.
Just like any forex, just like any currency, it's floating on the exchange based on supply and demand.
Exactly. I mean, overall, though, I do think the exchangers are one of the weakest links in the chain, just because that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of converting these so-called math puzzles into actual national political currencies.
Okay, so that you're saying the exchange mechanism is not as robust as it could be because of the puzzles that go into creating the exchange rate mechanism.
Well, I mean, the math puzzle is just it's just a slang term that I use for the digital token. You have to remember, it's a digital bearer token that I'm sending you. So it's like if I were to scrunch up a casino chip or a $100 bill and shoot it through the broadband connection, it would shoot out your internet here, and you would have the value. When you lose Bitcoins, they're destroyed. You can't get them back. And just like when you burn a dollar bill, that $100 bill is gone from the system. So that's what makes these so unique and different, is that it's not just a counterparty trade like with PayPal. It's a digital bearer token that you can actually send to someone over the internet. And we haven't had that before on the internet, which is what a lot of people miss in this.
Right, a digital bearer coupon.
Or a digital bearer certificate.
Right, so like a bearer certificate, like a bearer bond, is how we most frequently see that term. It's not made out to anyone specifically. It's its own, like a dollar, doesn't have my name on it.
Correct. It exists because of the generation that you went through on the cryptographic side.
But PayPal has more. It is bearer in the sense that I'm using two named email participants, and they're making a cross.
Not only is it bearer, but it is subject to reversibility. And PayPal has up to 60 days when they can reverse transactions. Right. With Bitcoin, you have 100% transaction irreversibility. So it really is like cash on the internet.
Okay, so it's anonymous in the way that dollars should be. However, since the non-digital economy is becoming more dominated by electronic payment systems that are tied to databases and being identified constantly, in fact, those transactions are not really as anonymous as people think or would hope that they would be. Whereas a Bitcoin electronic transaction, peer-to-peer, bearer note, decentralized is in fact anonymous.
Absolutely. It has the potential to be anonymous. Now, it's all how you structure it. It's not 100% anonymous for the people who don't know how to use it and structure it right, because you can always look at the blockchain and the transactions that have happened. You might not be able to associate those to the people, but if you're careful in how you use Bitcoin, you can make it anonymous for yourself.
Okay, so it's decentralized, and what you're describing in this P2P network is a community that is almost self-regulating. And it's in their interest to make sure that every piece of the transaction is running smoothly. Similar, I guess you could say, to what we see in the open source movement with software projects like Linux, where the community is contributing code to the Linux operating system in their own self-interest. And there's no reason not to contribute the best you could to that system because you yourself use that system. Precisely.
They're coming out with new releases, so it's updated. The code is updated, and you can download the newest version if you'd like to. I think with everything that you're mentioning, though, Max, it has so many things that are revolutionary. But let's look in the economic side of how this will affect things. I mean, if it's possible to have tax-free exchanges, you could potentially get, this would assist in almost a parallel economy that would exist alongside of a regular economy that wouldn't be counted in GDP. People would be doing tax-free transactions, and as long as they were able to spend the Bitcoin within the Bitcoin ecosystem, they would be living as sovereign individuals. Now, on the government level, I think what this is going to actually lead to is a move and a shift away from the model of taxing income. And I think you're going to start to see governments move towards some type of consumption-based tax or headcount type tax. And the reason is because the income levels of individuals are going to be more and more difficult to ascertain.
Right. So it's similar in a way to barter, in that you're bartering out there, and you barter a goat for 5 chickens, let's say, and you're not creating a revenue stream, taxable revenue.
Correct.
So you're recreated the digital environment. You've created a digital bartering system, if you will.
Barter is still taxable, though. I mean, even with barter, you don't really get out of taxation. What I'm stating is that even with Bitcoin, you would still be liable for the taxes. But I think that what will happen at the government level is that it'll be difficult to ascertain true income, and governments won't be able to use money to track identity. It wasn't really until the income tax in 1916 that governments started using money to track identity.
Okay, now clearly this is a challenge to the status quo. Clearly, as you mentioned, the 1960 income tax, which came on the heels of the 1913 creation of the Federal Reserve Bank,
correct,
which created interest-bearing money, and they needed the income tax to pay for the interest. And you ended up, well, a lot of people would argue, close to 100 years of a system that gets completely away from having what the founding fathers in the U.S. anyway had intended. So, but you're taking on the establishment in this way. So clearly they're going to feel threatened at some point, or do they feel threatened, or is there going to be a confrontation of some sort, or how do you approach that?
I don't think that Bitcoin is large enough right now to be on the radar of many governments. The entire economy is approximately $50 million. If you take the total number of Bitcoins outstanding multiplied by the exchange rate, it's $50 million. And it used to just be 5 million a small time ago. I can see it growing exponentially, and it definitely challenges the status quo. But I also think that they're in a quandary, because if they were to prosecute it, or if they were to prohibit it, they would actually be lending legitimacy to it, because it's an intangible math puzzle. So I brought a little prop along
Okay, you're
with
getting
me.
back to the puzzles now.
Well,
there's three things we've talked about, and we've got then two things we have yet to fully explain: the puzzles and the coin creation. I don't even think we're going to have time to get into the coin creation bit. We're going to have to look at that yourself at bitcoin.org to fill in on that bit. But the puzzles, we're going to conquer the puzzles here. Tell me what you got for the puzzles.
Well, actually, the prop is not for the puzzles. Okay. I use the term puzzle because I'm trying to get away from the cryptography discussion that's involved in creating the coins. The prop that I brought, though, is a normal USB thumb drive that you can put things on. Now, I can have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin on here. And I'm talking about challenging what you mentioned about how Bitcoin can challenge the status quo. I can cross the border with this, going into France or going into Switzerland or going into any country, and have it in my pocket and without having to declare anything. And there's currently nothing illegal about that, because you have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, but no governments recognize the value of Bitcoin. It's still just math, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so let me ask you this: is there a single point of failure? In other words, can I knock this out somehow if I were a government somewhere? Because if it's on the internet and it's part of the network, and the network, as we know, there is no single point of failure, then is it indestructible?
I believe that it is, and there are certain weaknesses. But I will tell you this: if BitTorrents were destructible, wouldn't the copyright regimes already have shut those down? I believe digital cash will do to legal tender what BitTorrents did to copyrights.
All right, we're going to leave it there. That is fascinating, and we will follow up on this. You have dedicated your blogging Monetary Future pretty much to the exploration of this, correct?
And the implications. It's gotten more and more in the Bitcoin direction as this has started to pick up. I want to focus on the exchangers. There's about 2,000 exchangers globally that I want to start to focus on more with the blog.
Okay, and that's monetaryfuture.com? Is that the
themonetaryfuture.blogspot.com.
Okay, themonetaryfuture.blogspot.com.
Yes.
All right, John Matonis, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacy Herbert. And I want to thank my guest, John Matonis from themonetaryfuture.blogspot.com. If you want to send me an email, please do so at keiserreport@rttv.ru. Until next time, this is Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.